Let's just set this up. Okay, Shavua Tov. We are about to complete the first book of Mada, chapter 10 of Teshuvah, and also a very, very great time to be learning about Teshuvah because we know we're in the month of Elul, and Elul is all about doing Teshuvah and preparing for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. So it is actually the best timing to be learning these halachas. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we'll go right into those laws. Boom, boom. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Chapter 10. Al Yoimar Adam. So today's chapter will be about doing things for altruistic purposes. Doing things just for Hashem and no other motives involved. And that's what we'll talk about in chapter 10. Al Yoimar Adam. We talked about the so many different in Hilchos Tshuva about the which Tshuva is really getting close to Hashem and the different and we went through some deep concepts of Bechira Chavshis, free will, and some other concepts in Yiddishkeit. So Ayim Adam Harini Oisa Mitzvah Satayra Basic Masuk the Shekabo Kol Habrachis Aksuvaispa. A person shouldn't say, I'm going to do all the mitzvahs and observe it. So you know what? I should accept and I should be able to get all the blessings that it's written in the Torah. And we know this. Today we read the Parshas Kisavai, which talks about many different curses and many blessings that come upon us when we do the right thing and when we don't do the right thing. So a person should say, "Let me do the right thing, so I should get all the blessings that are written in the Torah." Or I should get a really good chai, a really good olam haba, a really good portion of the world to come. The Afrishman Avedis. And I'll separate myself from sin. I should be saved myself from those great calamities that the Torah talks about. Or that I shouldn't get cut off from my portion of the world to come. Well, this is noble, meaning it's not like it's forbidden to serve God this way. The Rambam says, it's not proper, it's not fitting to serve God in this approach. Because someone who's serving God in this approach, it's a way of serving God by fear. This is not the great factors, and this is not the great qualities that we attribute to the Nevi'im, the prophets, and to the Chacham. This is kind of like a childish way of serving God. And a way of which is important for a child to be raised this way, because eventually you have to start somewhere. And if you start talking about the great love of child after God, it'll be over his head. But you could use fear, or you could use candies, and Ram was going to talk about that later. Of what if you're not holding at this approach? You should still obviously, of course, serve God. But basically, the approach what he's putting out in this first paragraph is that we should not serve God for ulterior purposes, but other than I want to connect with Hashem. Someone who serves God with love occupies himself with Torah and mitzvahs. He walks in the path of wisdom, not because he's looking to get something out of it, or not because he's afraid of something. He does the truth because it is a truth. You don't need to entice him. You don't need to bribe him with anything. And the good will come as a result in the end. This is the true quality and a great quality, and not every even great sage reaches this quality. This is the quality that our patriarch and our forefather Avram had, that God called my friend, someone who loves me. Because Avram only served God from true love. And this is a quality that Hashem commanded us to try to pursue through Moshe. It says in the Shema, and you shall love Hashem your God. If you truly love Hashem with the proper love, you'll do all the mitzvahs from great love. All right, imagine a child, or imagine someone, a very, very close friend or family member. Imagine the relationship was always, what am I going to get out of this relationship? I'm going to bring my kid to the airport, so that way, when I ask him for something else, he's gonna say yes. Well, that might be a calculation to some, but for the vast majority, I don't think people think like that, because it's, you love your child, you love your best friend, you love your spouse, you love your someone who's close to you, and you're ready to do anything for them. And it's not a matter of what am I going to get out of it. It's, I'm happy, I love you, I'm happy to do this for you. So imagine we had that relationship with Hashem, that it's only about Hashem. It's not, I want to do this right so I get all the rewards that's written in the Torah. Now, what is the proper degree of love? This is halacha 3. He should love Hashem. He should love Hashem with the great love. You say the Azamoid Ashte Nafshe Shura Bavas Hashem, till his soul is connected to love of Hashem, and he finds himself completely obsessed with this love. Like someone who is, you watch these romance movies and you see the love that goes on there, that they can't stop thinking about their love for even a second. And this is the true love between a male and female. When you have true love, it doesn't stop when you're sitting down, when you get up. When you're eating and drinking, you always feel that love. More than this love that a person has to someone he truly loves, like a love, a person should have the love to Hashem. It should always be, he should be obsessed with it constantly. As we say in the Shema, you should love God with all your heart and all your soul. This is what Shlomo said, King Solomon said as a metaphor, that I am sick with love. And what does it mean I'm sick with love? It means that wherever I can't take it away. I just can't fulfill it. I'm always wanting more and more. I just keep on thinking about you. And that's the love we should have to Hashem. We know King Solomon wrote Shir Hashirim, which is the book of love. And it talks about, the verses there talk about the great love between a male and female. And we know that this is really a parable, a metaphor of our love for the Jewish people to Hashem, which is why it's a very, very holy book, and why we read it before Shavuos, and we read it that Chassidus brings many of these verses, because these are really deep verses, and brings out the love that we have to Hashem. Today, one of the most famous psukim is related to this month of Elul, Ani l'doidi v'doidi li, which means I am to my beloved is to me, which gives us the whole entire theme of this month of how to serve Hashem, is in the book of Shir Hashirim, the book of love, because that's a metaphor and a parable of how the Jewish people to Hashem. Halacha number 4. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a second here. Okay. Halacha number 4. Amr Chacham Rishonim, our sages said, Shema Taimar, maybe one would say, Harini lo mitei b'shul shei asher, maybe I'll study Torah in order that I should be wealthy. B'shul shekara rabbi, or because I should be called a teacher and a great sage. B'shul shekabel sacham haba, or because I should accept much reward in the world to come, get a good portion, get first row seats. Tamalaymer la'avas Hashem. So the verse teaches me to love Hashem. In other words, whatever you do, only do out of love. Don't do it because you're expecting something in return. Our sages also tell us to want and desire God's mitzvahs, but not the reward of the mitzvahs. And this is how the greatest sages would tell and teach their students and their children. Al tiu kavadim, it's in the ethics of our fathers, Pirkei Avos. Al tiu kavadim amshamshin sarav. Don't be like the servants that serve their master almanas lekabo pras, in order to get something in return. Rather, be like those that serve their masters just to serve their masters, not to get anything else in return. Because if he's a great master, why would you serve your master for nothing in return? if he's a great master, and you're let's say he's a person who's let's say this is a person, a human being that is such a good person. He literally helps people, he inspires people, and he uplifts the world. That's somebody who you would just want to do something for, not because you expect anything in return. So if it's a master, it's worth it to that's worth to serve, then you should serve him out of love. And of course, when it comes to Hashem, needless to say, it's worth it to serve Hashem for no other reason other than to serve Hashem. That itself is the greatest accomplishment. Halacha number 5. Kol ha'isik b'Torah kedei lekabel sachar kedei shleitigia leparanos harei ha'isik shloi lishma. Whoever occupies himself with Torah study or does mitzvahs in order that punishment shouldn't come, if he does something wrong, he's afraid maybe a punishment will befall him, or because he should get reward when he does something right. This is what we call serving God shelo lishma, not for God's sake. And whoever serves God not for anything in return, that's what we call serving God lishma, for the sake of God. We find these phrases many times in the Talmud, to be isik lishma and shalei lishma. Was it for God's sake or was it not for God's sake? In other words, if it's not for God's sake, whose sake is it for? Why am I doing this? It looks like I'm doing this mitzvah for God's sake. It's doing it for some personal, selfish reasons as well. The fichach, ba'amru chachamim, yet, and we talked about this briefly. What if I'm not holding here? What if I'm not Avram Avinu? We said this is a very high level to reach, and I'm not only going to serve God because for no other reason and for God. I also want something in return. I want to live a peaceful life, and that's why I want to make sure to do the mitzvah. I'm afraid that if I don't do the mitzvahs, maybe something harmful will come of me, or maybe I'm learning Torah because it brings me, great honor. Maybe I'm doing this mitzvah because it brings me something great. So what do I do if I'm holding there? And this is a famous phrase from the Talmud. A person should always study Torah or be involved in Torah mitzvos, even not for God's sake. Because eventually, when doing it for not even starting out, not for God's sake, eventually you get to doing it for God's sake. So always, if it's about doing something right, actually studying Torah, doing mitzvos, go for it. Even if you're not holding it, doing it for no other reason other than for God. And eventually you'll get there. With the more Torah you study, the more mitzvahs you do, you'll get to this level of love, or getting closer to the level of love that Avraham Avinu had. That's the goal, and we work on getting there. And every day we could take another step in that direction. And lefichach, therefore, when it comes to teaching children, this is very, very important. When you're teaching beginners or children, you try to entice them, or you try to inspire them to serve God, maybe out of fear a little bit, or in order to get some reward, until their knowledge gets greater, it becomes greater, and they become more wise in Torah study. Then you teach them a little bit more, the secrets of the Torah, and how to serve God for no other reason other than for God. And you kind of get them used to this pattern in a peaceful way. In other words, you don't say, "How could you?" Don't ever serve God. You don't tell a child, "How dare you study this?" or "How dare you do this because I promised you a candy." Is that why you're doing this correct deed? Is that why you're doing this mitzvah? We never tell a child that. We encourage him with candy or with whatever reward is appropriate for that child or for a beginner, and we kind of channel him through to get to a higher level until he gets to a place where he comprehends and grasps God and begins serving God out of love. And just want to note that there's a Hasidic teaching that says that a person should always start learning Shalol Lishma, not for God's sake, because eventually he'll get to God's sake. And Hasidus explains that's deeper than that. That in the Shalol Lishma, even in the not for God's sake, even in the selfish reasons why we might be doing a mitzvah or studying Torah, within it lies the true desire of the neshama of serving God lishma, of serving God for God's sake. In shemitoich also means within in Hebrew. So within that selfish desire, as it may seem from external perspective, within it lies an internal desire to cling to God and to serve God, because that's God. That's who I want to connect with. And then the neshama is a piece of God. So it's just a matter of revealing and scraping away the externalities that we have that get in the way between our connection to Hashem. And eventually we reveal our true, real desire, which is to really connect to Hashem, and for no other reason other than that. So within the Shalol Lishma also lies a Lishma. Also, a very beautiful story that's brought down the Talmud is there was this great sage who was called Rabbi Yossi Kaspi, which means Rabbi Yossi the silver goblet. That's what it was. That's what his name was. And why did he earn this name? And that's because there was a great sage. Name is slipping me. I think it was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. I could be wrong. This is a story mentioned in the Talmud. And he said, and he basically gave the following promise. He said, whoever dedicates their life to Torah study and becomes a great master of Torah study, I promise to make rich. I will make you wealthy if you are able to become a great Torah scholar. And there was an individual there who was Yossi, and he liked the offer. He said, this is a great deal. He was smart, and he liked money. He said, this would be an unbelievable opportunity for me to earn a lot of money. And he did that. He actually went and studied day and night and went to the Torah Academy there, the yeshiva, and he became a great Torah scholar. And eventually, after a few years of Torah study, he said, okay, I think I'm ready for the second part of the deal. Now make me a rich man. Give me all the gold and silver. And Rebbe looked at him so disappointingly and admonished him, how you studying Torah for riches? That's why you came to the academy? And in the meanwhile, Rebbe was the one who promised it. And what the end of the story is that he told him, okay, study another few years. He was gonna kick him out of the yeshiva and say this was a bad deal. But he ended up letting him stay and said, study another few years and then I'll give it to you. And he did that. And a few years later, he came back to him and said, you remember that promise you gave me of the riches? I don't want it anymore. I'm just so happy. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to connect to Hashem. I learned so much Torah, and this is what I want to do. I don't want any riches for it. And because of that, he said, now I could give you the riches. And they named him, because of this story, he got the name of Yosef Kaspi. So this is a story in the Medrash or in the Talmud. And the point is that sometimes you have to entice people, for selfish things, and it's a good thing and it's not a bad thing, but the goal should be to get the place where we're serving God for another reason other than serving God. And the final halacha of this book, it is a well-known and clear matter that the love of Hashem does not become attached within a person's heart until he becomes obsessed with it at times. He has to leave other worldly things behind. As it says, love God with all your heart and all your soul. If your heart is in two places, you can't love God with all your heart. Only with the knowledge that you know. Based on your knowledge, you'll have your love. If you have a little bit of knowledge, you have a little bit of love. If you have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of love. And because of this, a person has to take the time and set aside himself to understand and to grasp and to be busy intellectually with these great wisdoms and knowledge that give him this knowledge of Hashem, and that is through studying Torah, Hasidus, through studying about God. According to the knowledge that everybody has individual capabilities of what their intellectual capabilities are. As we explained in the first beginning chapters of this book, of the foundations of Torah, we went through some of the fundamentals of understanding God. And based on our understanding of God, that's how much I love. And this is why it's so important to study Hasidus, because Hasidus gives us a lot of insights according to, of course, only based on understanding of mankind, based to the best of our ability, but to understand as much as we could about Hashem. That's how we develop such a strong love to Hashem. So the more we study, the more Torah you do, you learn, the more mitzvahs you do, the more good deeds you think, the more good deeds that you do, the greater the love comes to Hashem. Your love to Hashem is. And you might have to leave some stuff behind. If you're loving too many things, it's hard to love Hashem with a full heart. And with that, Nigmar Sefer Rishon, Sefer Mada, we have completed the first book of Rambam of the 14 books, and this is the book of Mada, the book of knowledge. And with the help of God, we have completed the following chapters, and they are the amount of chapters are 46. The Sodei Torah, foundations of the Torah. Sorry, getting drawings on here. The foundations of the Torah, 10 chapters. We went through the laws of character and personal development, 7 chapters. Laws of Torah study, 7 chapters. Laws of idolatry, 12 chapters. And the laws of tshuva, 10 chapters. And congratulations to all of you who have been learning the past 46 days, learning the Rambam every day and completing this book. And this is a momentous occasion. And Mazel Tov.